You close your bedroom door, hear the tiny click of the lock, and suddenly the whole world is supposed to understand. Do not come in. That feels so normal now that we barely notice how strange it is. Modern couples are expected to have a room, a bed, a door, a private conversation, and maybe the sacred modern ritual of pretending nobody is home. But for most of human history, humans did not have private bedrooms. They did not have apartments, thick walls, hallway etiquette, or a polite knock before entering. So how did ancient couples ever get privacy? The first answer is uncomfortable, but simple. Ancient privacy was not usually a place. It was a moment. It was not something you owned forever, like a bedroom with your socks on the floor and a phone charger nobody else is allowed to touch. It was something people made temporarily, inside a world that was almost always shared. A couple might live near a fire, inside a shelter, beside relatives, beside children, beside elders, beside food, tools, dogs, smoke, and at least one person who absolutely noticed everything. So privacy was less like closing a door, and more like waiting for attention to move somewhere else. To understand this, you have to imagine how small and public ancient life could be. A camp was not just a house, it was a kitchen, bedroom, school, hospital, workshop, daycare, meeting place, and alarm system all mashed together under the sky. Someone was sharpening a stone tool. Someone was feeding a child. Someone was coughing near the fire. Someone was telling the same story again, but louder this time because apparently nobody suffered enough the first time. Inside that kind of world, privacy could not depend on walls. It had to depend on timing, distance, darkness, body language, and the kindness of other people. And the group that made privacy difficult was also the group that kept you alive. Being alone for too long could be dangerous. Other people noticed predators before you did. They watched children while you searched for food. They remembered which plants made you sick, which paths led to water, and which old injury still needed help. They shared warmth, warnings, tools, meat, stories, and memory. So a private room might not have felt like the ultimate romantic dream. It might have felt like stepping outside the safety system. That means the ancient question was probably not, how do we escape everyone forever? It was more like, how do we create a small bubble of closeness without breaking the group? And the answers were practical, simple, and probably a little awkward. People used distance. A few steps beyond the firelight could change everything. The far side of a rock, the edge of the trees, a quiet riverbank, or a path where others were not working could become private for a while. Not because nobody in the universe knew you were there, but because everyone understood that you were not asking for a building. You were asking for a pause and attention. People also used time. Dawn could be private because the camp was slow and half asleep. Late night could be private because the fire was smaller, voices were lower, and most bodies were too tired to care. Seasonal movement may have mattered too. Hunter-gatherer groups often changed size, split apart, visited others, and came back together. When a group became smaller, larger, busier, or more spread out, the shape of privacy changed with it. In other words, ancient privacy was not a fixed room on a floor plan, it was a moving target. They also used tasks. Fetching water was not just fetching water. Gathering wood was not just gathering wood. Checking traps, walking to a stream, carrying baskets, looking for plants, or moving along the edge of camp could create little stretches of human space. Nothing about this had to be dramatic. Most private moments in human life are not dramatic. They are two people talking quietly while everyone else is busy pretending the world is more interesting than them. And then there were social rules, not written laws, not a privacy policy carved into bone, not an ancient customer service pop-up asking if you accept emotional cookies. Just the invisible rules every small group learns very quickly. Do not stare. Do not interrupt. Do not make someone else's awkward moment your entertainment unless you want revenge served cold at the next campfire. In a small community, reputation could be louder than a locked door. If you embarrassed one person today, another person could embarrass you tomorrow. So privacy was protected by mutual threat, mutual mercy, and the basic human knowledge that everyone is ridiculous sometimes. This is probably why ancient privacy was not always silent. A crowded camp could still contain private moments if people agreed not to focus on them. You can see a version of this even now. A family kitchen can be full of people, and two people can still have a private conversation by lowering their voices. A crowded bus can be full of strangers, and everyone still politely looks into the distance. A thin apartment wall can teach you that modern privacy is sometimes just everyone making heroic efforts to pretend sound does not exist. So ancient privacy may have worked less like a sealed container and more like a social agreement. Of course, we have to be careful. Archaeology can show us hearths, post holes, shelters, sleeping areas, tools, animal bones, footprints, and activity zones. It can show where people cooked, repaired things, gathered, slept, and sometimes buried their dead. But it cannot replay every quiet conversation between two people beside a dying fire. We are not watching ancient couples through a window. We are reconstructing the shape of their world from traces, from comparison, and from what humans usually need when they live closely together. And what they needed was not only romantic privacy. They needed space to argue without humiliating each other. Space to comfort each other after fear, hunger, injury, birth, loss, or a bad day in a world that did not care about bad days. Space to whisper plans, share doubts, repair trust, or simply sit near someone without becoming entertainment for the whole camp. Privacy was not just about hiding affection. It was about protecting the fragile parts of a relationship from becoming public property. But the strange thing is that ancient couples probably had something many modern couples struggle to find. They had witnesses, not in a creepy way ideally. They lived inside a web of people who could notice when something was wrong, help with children, share food, interrupt danger, and remember that a couple was not a tiny island. That could be suffocating. It could also be stabilizing. In a small camp, your relationship was never only your relationship. It was connected to siblings, elders, friends, children, rivals, obligations, and survival. Modern privacy changed the bargain. A bedroom door can protect tenderness, conflict, rest, messiness, and the right to be unseen. That is a real gift. It gives people control over their own lives in a way ancient humans rarely had. But it also creates a new illusion, that love is supposed to happen almost entirely behind closed doors. Two people can have a whole apartment and still feel like nobody around them would notice if the room got colder. Modern couples may have more privacy than almost anyone in history, and somehow many still feel alone. Maybe ancient couples did not need privacy to mean a locked door, maybe they needed it to mean a little distance, a little darkness, a little timing, and a little kindness from everyone else. Maybe they had less space but more witnesses. Maybe we have more space but fewer people allowed close enough to see us. And maybe the strange part is not that ancient couples had so little privacy. Maybe the strange part is that modern couples have so much of it and still often have to face life alone.